It's game 45 for both the Leafs and the Avalanche tonight in Colorado, and this is arguably the toughest test that the Toronto Maple Leafs have had the entire season. And you want to talk about heat checks, this is what this game is tonight for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Traveling to Colorado, playing a 10 p.m. Eastern time game for the Toronto Maple Leafs, a 10 p.m. local time, so a late one for us Leafs fans on the East Coast who are going to stay up to watch this. But you're going into Colorado 7-1-2 in your last 10, coming off a 3-game win streak, playing a Avs team who has only lost 11 times. That's right, through 44 games played this season, the Avalanche have lost 11 times. But you want to go even further? They've only lost 4 times in regulation. That's right. Of the 44 games they've played this season, they've only walked away without a point in 4 games this year. So, talking about winning this one, it's going to be tough. Winning it in reg is going to be even tougher for the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight against a very, very, very good Colorado Avalanche team led by Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar. So in today's game preview, we're going to get into the line combos, who's playing with who, did anything change, who's starting in goal, as well as our best bet. I'm Zack Phillips. Let's get into today's game preview, a presentation, as always, a Bet365. And let's start off by heading on over to Daily Faceoff to see what our lines are. So starting with your first line for tonight's game, Matthew Knies, Auston Matthews, Max Domi, keeping together what you had on Saturday night. And that's going to be the theme from line 1 through line 4 in this one. Knies, Matthews, Domi. Look, I'll be honest, I didn't get to see too much of Saturday night's game against the Canucks. Obviously, for those of you guys who follow on this channel, I was away, so I missed the game preview as well as the post-game show. Shout out to Nick Alberga and producer Vic for filling in on both accounts for that one. But, look, as far as the beginning of the season went, Knies and Matthews never really found their footing together. So, continually watching them go out there and just kind of both struggling to find their games at the same time probably didn't help the case where Knies couldn't get things together. We know he was battling through injury. Auston Matthews couldn't get his game together. We assume he also was probably battling through injury. And then when you're kind of relying on the other guys around you to maybe help you or prop you up, but they're injured or not able to find their game, it's going to make it harder for you to find yours, because then it becomes more reliant upon you digging deep and just finding it on your own and doing it solo. And that wasn't the case for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and specifically that first line early on in this season. Now, Max Domi of late has really come into shape here, or come into form here as the guy who could play alongside Auston Matthews. If you remember back to the season where Auston Matthews scored 69 goals, there was a decent chunk of that year where Matthews played with Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi. And it's not like it was a significant amount of that year, or like Bertuzzi and Domi put up crazy amounts of points, but during that time, it fit well together because Matthews could drive his own line. He could bring those guys up with him. He elevated their play. They elevated their play as well because of it, and then they just were a tough line to match up against. Now, Matthews started to do that when it was the line of McMahon and Domi and Matthews. He elevated his play. He found his game. He got his footing, and it brought Domi's game up. Sliding in Knies alongside them in the return of William Nylander on Saturday night seems to have not disrupted anything at all, at least for that line and the rest of the team here, because you go into that game against Vancouver, you walk away with a blowout win against the Canucks. Everyone else's game seem to kind of continue to follow. The team game continues. Max Domi's aggression, the physicality, you saw the fight there, it all continues. And then you see the team aspect of everything just continuing to grow for this group. It's a positive sign as of right now, because you watch these guys step back in, you want them to buy into the team game. You fill into a different role with new line mates. You want them to buy into that team game. Knies steps up with Matthews. Nylander goes into the second line. Everything still continues to slot in accordingly. That's all you could ask for. And that goes down to your second line there now, where William Nylander did return on Saturday, stays in the lineup here, and stays on that second line with Tavares and Rielly again. Look, Matias Rielly has looked really, really good as of late. Johnny T's play has been I'm going to say average because I think he can get to another level. I don't think it's been poor, but I think that there's another gear that he could find. I think he could kind of step up. He could take over more similar to what he was doing early in the season than he has of late. But if he's a guy who at $4 million or, and change on his cap hit can just be an average good centerman in your middle six, I think you're in a pretty decent spot. William Nylander just kind of got to get back into rhythm here, scoring goals like he did on Saturday night and continue to be a contributor to this team. Because if you can have on different lines, Matthews rocking, playing the way that he's been of late, Nylander playing the way he was at the beginning of the season, even dating back to last year, seeing the points and the goal production that he was putting together, if he can be that guy, this team is going to be in a really good spot when you factor in the contributions from your third and fourth lines and the depth that you're getting throughout your lineup here right now. So if Maccelli and Nylander can click, Matthews can drag a first line, and then you go through the rest of it where I'll just kind of bounce through it quickly here. But the third line of Cowan, Waugh, and Robertson, which has been really good and probably one of my favorite lines as a whole and as a constructed group of three there. That's probably been my favorite group to watch so far of these guys, aside from the play that Auston Matthews was putting together, Bobby McMahon was putting together in your top six. Outside of that, this is probably my favorite line from your first guy on the left wing in Easton Cowan to the center ice with Nick Waugh and the way he's been playing, the physicality, the speed, the skill he's been playing with, and him benefiting from having the other guy as well, Nick Robertson, on the right side between Easton Cowan and Nick Robertson, and then the responsibility and the maturity of Nick Waugh up the middle. It's kind of just leveled things out for that line, made them hard to handle. They're speedier. They get in down below the goal line in the offensive zone. They can go to work. They can play a physical game. Again, they're two smaller guys in Cowan and Robertson, so they're not going to physically impose themselves on people. But their willingness to engage and not be scared puts them over the top there when in that line, in that bottom six, where they're just going to be hard to match up against because they can put the puck in your corner. They can beat you to it in a race, and if they don't, you have to worry about them finishing a check. And it's not like it's going to be a earth-shattering, bone-crunching hit, but it can rattle you, it can make you think, and it can make you have to play the puck a little bit quicker, which can force turnovers, as we've seen from that line time and time again. Now down to your fourth line, Steven Lorentz, obviously, the other night getting an assist in that one. Bobby McMahon continuing to play well, even if he's in the top six, if he's on the first line, if he's on your fourth line, he still looks good. And then the man that everybody has fallen in love with in this city, Scott Laughton. He had a rocky start to his tenure as a Toronto Maple Leaf back last year when he first came here after the trade, where, all the analytics nerds and all the chart people who have never put on a pair of skates or sat in a locker room or played a single game with teammates in their entire lives wanted to say Scott Laughton does nothing. Well, you can see that Scott Laughton's impact is even more so than what it is on the ice. There's some shit that charts just can't put together, and that's what Scott Laughton brings to the table. So no matter how hard you want to crunch your numbers and say, well, the analytics say this, you can fuck your numbers and watch what the guy does when he's in the room and how he impacts his teammates and the kind of camaraderie this guy brings to the Toronto Maple Leafs that they've lacked for effectively like 8.5 years, almost 9 years in this Matthews era, where you see Scott Laughton come in here, take over a locker room, be a leader, be a guy who steps up vocally, steps up physically, shows it on and off the ice, and then he's also contributing with his play. It's a lot easier to have a raw locker room guy who can be a good player, who can be impactful. And I know that when I say that, any of those chart people out there who want to call into the show and talk about why Travis Boyd should be playing on the team, they're going to be saying, well, okay, you brought in other guys before. The difference is those guys couldn't play the same way that Scott Laughton can. And he struggled last year. He's the first person to admit that. Rosie's talked about it time and time again, how Laughton admitted when he got here, he didn't play the way that he wanted to. He was not contributing the way that he wanted to. He was gripping his stick too tight. There was a lot of nerves and anxiety, obviously, about coming here to Toronto, where his wife's from, his wife's family is from, his family is from. Everything about being a Toronto Maple Leaf probably got the better of Scott Laughton, and he didn't play the way he wanted. This season has been drastically different. He looks like the guy that they spent the picks and the prospects on in that trade that everyone said was too expensive, which still may end up being too expensive. But this is a drastically different player than what you had last year, and his line mates are better for it, and the Maple Leafs are better for it. So kudos to Scott Laughton for stepping up and elevating his play the way that he has, because it was a turbulent start, but he's turned things around, and it's not just his play, it's the play of those around him. They really missed him early in this season, and now that he's found his footing and he's found his voice in that room, you can visibly see this team turning things around. This team playing a different way. And this is a different era of Maple Leafs hockey than we've seen in the entire time Matthews, Nylander, Morgan Rielly, and the other guy who left for Las Vegas. Anything that they did in that period of time. Those are your forward lines for tonight's game against the Colorado Avalanche in Colorado. Your defensive pairings for tonight, and another guy that I want to give some flowers to here in this one. So we'll start elsewhere to open this thing up. But, I mean, just look at the defensive pairings. And I know Nick touched on this on Saturday. I know we got to see it on Saturday as well. But look at the bottom pairing. Troy Stecher in your bottom pairing was Simone Benoit. Troy Stecher has been playing team-leading minutes, game-leading minutes at times this season for the Toronto Maple Leafs. We talked about the Panthers game where Troy Stecher played second to only Gustav Forsling, another like Hall of Fame waiver pickup, by the way, but second to only Gustav Forsling in that game. The most of any Maple Leaf and the second most of anybody in that game against the Panthers. He's now slotted on your third pairing. Do you know how much good that does for your team if Troy Stecher, who is playing as well as he is lower down in your lineup? And that's not a knock on Stecher. That's a testament to the depth that you were able to have when you look at Troy Stecher and Simone Benoit as your third pairing. You look at Ekman Larsson and Jake McCabe as your second pairing. Obviously, you're still missing Chris Tanev, because if he comes back in and he can play with Jake McCabe, OEL goes down to your third pairing, Benoit comes out, and now your defense is overhauled from where it was a month ago, effectively. A month and a half ago, we should maybe even say, where you were looking at games, talking about on game previews, well, there's your first pair with Troy Stecher and OEL, or Troy Stecher and Jake McCabe, which was great, but then when you bump down and you're like Phil Myers, Matt Benning, Thrun, Benoit, like Morgan Rielly was in there over and over and over again. It's a very different looking decor. And with the team playing the way they are and the depth of the decor shaking out the way it has here now, with guys returning from injury and guys elevating their play, it's a very different looking team. OEL, McCabe into your second pairing, who McCabe returns on Saturday night, makes that second pairing a whole lot more stable. And then you go to the first unit, I should say, or first pairing for the Maple Leafs defensively. This is where I want to give some credit. Brandon Carlo, they haven't really admitted that he was playing through something early, but the way he's playing right now compared to how he was playing earlier in the season, and the fact that he underwent surgery for something that needed to be cleaned up, as they had kind of put it there for Brandon Carlo, and the plates in his foot and the infection that happened and the surgery he underwent, it seems like something was really hampering this guy, because he has been a fucking mutant since he's returned. Blocking shots, great in transition because he's been responsible with his gap. Good at transitioning the puck up ice when the Maple Leafs are able to force a turnover and get the puck in their possession and then try to transition back up ice. He's been pretty good at that as well, breaking up plays, getting pucks over to Rielly and getting things up on the move and making the first pass himself as well, because this is a guy that we looked at last year and was like a little bit slower, puck movement's not quite there. It's been a very different situation. On top of him playing physical, closing gaps in the neutral zone, taking time and space away from guys, and being a guy who can be very reliable on your penalty kill, he's been really good at 5-on-5, and he's elevated the play of Morgan Rielly. So if Brandon Carlo can continue to be this guy, I think a few different things happen here. You look at the first one, maybe you don't need to look at upgrading on the right side of your blue line. Maybe you don't need to look at a Dougie Hamilton trade or trying to acquire pieces like that as desperately as you probably did before he returned, when you saw him struggle to open this season. He's dealing with injury shit. There's concerns about what does it look like when he comes back? Do you need a partner for Morgan Rielly? Is Morgan Rielly a movable piece? All those questions come up. Well, if Brandon Carlo plays like this and he levels out the way Morgan Rielly plays, you're probably fine. You probably don't need that replacement. The next thing that it ends up doing, where it's like, hey, we don't have to ship this piece out and try to find another type of defenseman to come in here, is maybe you don't need so desperately to move on from Morgan Rielly. I know he has his warts. I know he has his problems in his game. I know there's things that I look at and my brain has to do everything it can in its power and its ability to not fucking explode watching the decisions that he makes on the ice. But with that said, if Brandon Carlo levels out his game and negates some of the negatives that we've seen when he's played without Brandon Carlo or without a top guy on his side or a guy that fits his mold perfectly, if you get him with Brandon Carlo who's cleaning that stuff up, it lessens the need for you to get rid of Morgan Rielly. And I know Leafs fans are going to hear that and say, I still want him gone. I hate the player, blah, blah, blah. And I understand that. There's a lot of Leafs Nation that really doesn't like Morgan Rielly, or the way he plays defense, I should say, and wants him gone. That's fair. But the point is that if Brandon Carlo does this and can help stabilize Morgan Rielly, the need to move on from the guy is less than it previously was. The need to move on from Morgan Rielly is not a be-all and end-all of your team and of your season, because he's not going to kill you with -4s against the New York Islanders in a game in which you lose 4-3 in overtime. He's not going to be the focal point of the disastrous loss, because Brandon Carlo, for the most part, can clean it up. Also to note, having the depth that you have, it also helps things out where McCabe, OEL, Stetcher, Benoit can take on more minutes if Morgan Rielly is not playing very well. The final piece to all of this, the penalty kill has been unbelievable, but a lot of these guys maybe performing above their abilities, maybe taking on too many minutes in a game than they should. Maybe at some point you keep running yourself out like that, you keep wearing yourself thin, it's going to break through and something is going to happen where it just becomes an uncontrollable flood, because my body's not used to this. My level of play is not used to this. And maybe I was riding a high where at some point here now where I go through a Western Conference road trip and I play the Avs at 10 p.m. and the Utah Mammoth at 10 p.m. on a back-to-back. And then I go to Vegas and I play at 9:30 p.m. on the Eastern time zone. And then we try to come back from this road trip. Maybe my body breaks down. And maybe I have a bad game and the floodgates open and I can't get it back. Brandon Carlo alleviates some of that pressure because he can fill into penalty killing rules. He can fill into late game stuff. He can be the guy who is like, I've been out. I haven't played games. I've got some fresh legs. I can step in here and I can alleviate pressure from guys in a season which is extremely condensed with the Olympic break here being thrown in February. So with him playing this way, it is a huge, huge positive to the Maple Leafs. Power play penalty kill, no changes from the other night, and I think that that's fair. Scored again, or contributed again in the game the other day. Both penalty kill and power play did. I mean, you look at that one, penalty kill ends up perfect against the Canucks in a game in which they took a bunch of penalties, some of which, I mean, you're taking too many men penalties in the first period and multiple. You probably want cleaned up in general, but your penalty kill did a bang-up job of negating those. So power play and penalty kill remains the same as what it was on Saturday. Nyes, Nylander, Michelli, Matthews, Morgan Rielly, your first unit. Cowan, Tavares, Domi, Robertson, OEL, your second unit. In terms of what you're going to have for a goaltending matchup tonight, quick note, Stolar's skating this morning with the Maple Leafs, but it was Joseph Woll who's going to be in net for the Toronto Maple Leafs against the Colorado Avalanche. And on the other side of things, a team that's just been next man up all season, Trent Miner is confirmed for the Colorado Avalanche. I'm not even going to try to give you guys a scouting report on Trent Miner because that would be fraudulent. I don't know jack squat about Trent Miner, but I will say the Avs, the way they play in front of anybody who goes in that net right now, it just doesn't seem to matter. So Trent Miner, the goaltender for the Colorado Avalanche. With that, let's get to our Bet365 best bet. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use promo code NATION. That's NATION, promo code NATION. NATION. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. If you're someone you know has a gambling problem, visit connectsontario.ca. So Nick steps in the other night and does the best bets for us, which I greatly appreciate from our boy Nick Alberga. He does the game preview, the best bets, all that good stuff. So again, thanks to Nick Alberga for filling in for me as I was away, filming some content, which you guys will be able to see over on the Daily Faceoff page starting tomorrow, actually. A cool interview with Jeff Merrick and a prospect from the Montreal Canadiens who attends Michigan University coming out at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure to give that one a look. But Nick gave out two best bets. He went 1-1 on that one. Leafs against the Canucks in reg. That one cashes, and then he loses the Auston Matthews anytime goal bet. But tonight, for myself, against the Avs, we're looking to continue what we've done in the game previews over the last little while for myself. Down 0.5 units on the year for my bets on the pregame videos, hoping to get ourselves into the black here tonight with this win. I mean, if anybody remembers, like 3 weeks ago, we were down almost 8 units here on the show, so it's been an absolute battle back to get to where we are right now. So with that, let's go over to Bet365 to see what we have for tonight's sides and totals. Starting with the Maple Leafs plus 200, the Avs heavy favorites here, minus 245. To be quite honest with you, I completely understand why the Avs are favored like this, why the Leafs on the road in Colorado against a team that doesn't fucking lose would be plus 200. Your total in this one is 6.5, minus 120 to the over, plus 100 to the under. I will just say it's not a best bet, but I don't mind throwing something on the Leafs here at plus 200 because I don't think they win in reg, but I think that they could push this thing to OT. I think that they could walk away with bare minimum a point, and if you get to OT, who knows? Maybe you just find a way for Scott Laughton to win a faceoff, you get possession, you go on a rush, and you score and close this thing out and get 2 points and upset the Colorado Avalanche. So I will go towards the idea of a Leafs money line. That's not going to be a best bet, but I will go towards that side at plus 200 especially. We're going to go to our best bet for tonight. I only got one. We're going to do the player prop section. We're going to go to goal scorers, and right there, second from the top, Auston Matthews plus 150. This is more so because I think this has to happen, and not so much because it's like, oh, this will. So, I mean, one part of this is obviously he's been playing a lot better lately. His offense has been there. The guys around him are helping out. The power play's scoring at a higher clip. You know, like this is all leading towards Matthews contributing a whole lot more. So that's part of it. The piece that I'm relying upon more than anything, other than it being a really good number at plus 150, is this is a spot for the Auston Matthews to realize the opportunity he has ahead of him against top-end talent, against one of the best teams in NHL history in the Colorado Avalanche, against Nathan MacKinnon, against Cale Makar, for him to step up and say, I'm not just back, but you should have never fucking written me off. I am the captain of Team USA. I'm the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And everybody who said that I was washed, I was done, the reports of his demise were premature. Auston Matthews can step up in this one, take over, score a goal tonight, and show, hey, I belong here in the conversation of best players in the NHL still. I had a down period, but I'm back. You got to watch out for me. So I'm going to bet on that here tonight. Half unit on Matthews anytime goal, $50 will profit you $75 in this one tonight. That is all for our game previews. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe here to the channel. Leafs Nation 401 right here on YouTube as well. If you want to listen to game previews, the post-game show, the Leafs Nation After Dark, wherever you get your podcasts, both the previews and the post-game stuff will be put out on that podcast platform. So make sure to check that out wherever you get your podcasts. I will be back tonight following tonight's game against the Avs. A quick note for people on the Eastern time zone, that is a 10 p.m. puck drop, which means a 12:45 Eastern time show start, approximate 12:45. So you want to watch the game and then you want to tune into the post-game show, that's when I'll be live. If this is a tough one for you, I understand, but make sure to come here to the channel and watch it after or listen wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks to everybody who's watched this. Can't wait to see your comments in the chat there. What do you think about tonight? What are your predictions? What is your best bet? I want to see it all. I will look forward to catching up to everybody following tonight's game against the Avalanche for game number 45. Until then, keep believing. For more content just like this, including game previews, post-game live shows, Leafs Morning Take, Monday through Friday with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill with special guests, as well as instant reaction videos. Make sure to be subscribed here to the Leafs Nation YouTube channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss anything, and drop a like.